C-Mo to C. Mitchell. God King Doom. No nicknames or aliases. Those are my pronouns. Welcome to the Bird Bath. Now, first and foremost, right after filming, the NFL announced that it was raising the salary cap by like $22 to $26 million, which is great news for the Falcons. We have a heavy cap hit with Kirk, and we have David Onyemata and Grady, Jarrett, and we need to free up some cap space. So this makes it a little bit easier for us, as well as if we want to trade Kirk Cousins, because now he becomes a much more feasible option for other teams who might be looking for a bridge quarterback or want to get them maybe a veteran presence in there. It frees up what his dead cap hit would be over the next few years. Now, I'm not sure of the full intricacies of that, and anybody in the chat that's a lot more well-versed on that, feel free to fill me in. But again, that gives us about 22 to 26 more million to play with in our cap space this year. And we could probably add a few more other players or maybe restructure some contracts in some different ways. The good old NFL offseason. This is a time of year where you see a ton of content and fans complaining and all type of speculation. Some of the topics of conversation have been widely around trading Kyle Pitts. One of the biggest reasons I don't think we're going to trade Kyle Pitts is, first and foremost, Michael Penix actually likes him. During the Super Bowl week, he was on the Unbuttoned podcast talking to Chris Sims about what he thinks about Kyle Pitts.
The touchdown pass you threw to Kyle Pitts, you connect with him right away. What's your plan for getting more out of this guy who has all the measurables, all the talent, but for whatever reason it hasn't clicked yet?
For him, it's believing in himself. For me, I'm going to believe in him. And he knows that. We just talked about, some of the things that we want to do. And, man, once we do that, our connection is going to continue to build. Just getting those full speed reps, getting those reps together in practice, and feeling comfortable with, the game plan. And, obviously, there's different ways you can scheme somebody up to get open based on game plan. It could be some of that as well, too. At the end of the day, whenever he's open, I gotta find him and get him the ball. And, I know he'll make big-time plays whenever it's in his hand.
If you look at last year, I believe that Kirk just never got to trusting Kyle Pitts, and that can really do something to a guy. Michael Penix definitely trusts him and he believes in him and he wants to give him the ball. As he was saying, he's got to look for him and make sure that he gets him the ball when he's open. It takes for your quarterback to realize and want to get that guy the ball. Michael Penix also, just in his rookie year, is realizing that you can scheme guys open. That's something I've been saying all year. They haven't been scheming Kyle Pitts open the way that they need to. And what I mean by that is you have to make him the primary read or the second or third read sometimes. And the way that you have the progressions, you're going to have your primary read, and then your second route is going to be right there in case that isn't there. And then you have something else that's also underneath. That is going to be a tight end or maybe a slot receiver, or sometimes it's going to be a running back out of the backfield. But oftentimes, with some of the better premier catching tight ends in the league, they make sure that they get those guys incorporated. But if you have them on the backside, or you have him where he's the last read, it makes it a little bit harder for the quarterback to get through those progressions, because you got these edge guys out here really coming for you. Now, granted, you still could probably take a trade offer, and the front office, they may not listen to what Michael Penix is saying at all. But it's widely known that the two most important things for a young quarterback is to have a good running game and to have a safety valve and a tight end. It's good having a number one receiver, but that tight end is really easy to get the ball to him. Another topic of conversation that I saw widely after the Super Bowl was a lot of Falcons fans saying we should have got Jalen Carter instead of Bijan Robinson. For one, I think that Bijan Robinson, contrary to popular belief, is better at football than Jalen Carter is. As good as Jalen Carter is, a beast amongst men. I ain't taking nothing away from him, so let's not get this twisted. But what I'm saying is, when you look at that Philly team, they still had to go and add Saquon Barkley. They still had to have Jalen Hurts. They still had to have a wide receiver that you want. They went and drafted all these pieces and still went out and paid a running back. So for all that hoopla about how running backs don't matter, I don't think they win that Super Bowl if they don't have Saquon Barkley. And I think one of the biggest things that I probably should have led with, first and foremost, Jalen Carter was in a severe car accident racing with a friend and left the scene of the accident while his friend was dying. That's got to do something to a guy. There's a very human element of football that I don't think a lot of fans really take into account. I can't imagine going through something like that and then still having to play in the state of Georgia with the media coming at them like that. And you know the type of town that Atlanta is. You got beat writers who don't mind throwing the team under the bus and hoping that the team gets sanctions against them for not reporting that something happened with Kirk. So they're going to attack Jalen Carter on those type of questions. And I don't think that he would be as productive here in Atlanta if he had to deal with that as he has been able to be in Philly. I think that things get to the psyches of players. And if you want to be able to be up to your best, you got to get away from distractions. Atlanta has a lot of distractions, and it's known for a lot of street races. It's known to be a wild party, nightlife city. And I don't think that this would have been quite the best environment for Jalen Carter as well with that. I'm not saying there's anything wrong with him, but he's a young dude and he wants to be able to get out and have fun. And I think that being in a place like Philly is not quite the same as it would have been here in Atlanta. And even furthermore, imagine if you're the family members of those people that died in that car accident tragically. Would you want to turn on Sundays and see Jalen Carter celebrated in Georgia? That would kind of do something to you. What if you're a Falcons fan? Do you even want to root for the team anymore, with that being said? So I think there's an element to this that a lot of fans are not taking into account. This ain't Madden, man. These are guys' lives. And I think we ought to have a little bit more empathy and respect for that. And one of the last things that I've seen going on has been talk about the offensive line. After we had Michael Penix, I'll never forget, I saw one of the reporters asking, were we going to take McGary and mix him over to the left side and take Jake and put him on the right side? And that just ain't how it works, guys. Again, this ain't Madden. Like, it's different having your pass sets from one side to the other. You don't just learn one side overnight like that. You don't just switch it up once you've been in the league like that. It takes certain players that can just move and play anywhere on the line. That's not always how it's going to be. Also, I think that Kaleb McGary gets a lot of disrespect. Shout out to Smitty the Sports Machine. Love my boy. Love your content. But he had a piece that he did saying that he thinks that he would get rid of Kaleb McGary and draft somebody so that we could save money. And respectfully, I don't think that getting rid of Kaleb McGary or trying to even draft his predecessor right now this early is the route that you go. I think that you have one of the better offensive tackles in the league. He's not maybe a top 3 guy. He might not even be a top 5 guy. I think he's a top 10 or 15 guy. We have one of the best offensive lines in the league. And he's undoubtedly one of the best run blockers in the league. But he didn't give up a lot of sacks last year. I've seen it fluctuating as to what they say the stats are on what he gave up. I've seen that he's given up 6 sacks, and I saw that he gave up 13. Kaleb McGary ain't terrible. Over the years, I think he's gotten a reputation as being a bad pass blocker with quarterbacks who hold on to the ball too long and quarterbacks who are statues in the pocket who also make bad decisions. Michael Penix, I don't think we're going to have that going on with him. Kaleb McGary is 29 years old and playing pretty good. He's not highly paid for his position. I think the highest paid offensive tackle is north of 25 million a year, maybe 30 million a year. If we were to cut Kaleb McGary, for example, there would be so many teams lined up to sign him right away, and they would sign him at that actual cost. I think a more feasible option would be to get rid of Grady, Jarrett, and possibly David Onyemata, and that looks like the direction we're going in. I think that our roster construction right now needs to be that we need to get younger and cheaper on defense and leave some cap room so that in the next few years we can sign Drake London when his contract comes up, because we don't want to go into a 5th-year option with him. I think that we're going to have Bijan Robinson coming up with his contract, and we need to have money for him. And Kyle Pitts, if he has a good year as well this year too, because if we were to get rid of Kyle Pitts, we'd have to also find another tight end. And I don't think that we just replace him with another tight end who could do all the same things that he can do as far as a big play threat. Maybe they can do a lot of the other dink and dunk things, but you can't replace all of what he does. But by no means do we need to be focusing on offensive line right now, except for signing Drew Dalman. I think that you have the pieces in place that you need for right now, and you can do that later. Also, for example, if we were to trade Kaleb McGary or cut him or do something else to get rid of him, you don't know that a young offensive lineman is going to come in right away and be as good as Kaleb McGary has gotten right now. It took him a few years just to get to this point and get comfortable playing in the league the way that he's playing now. So offensive line is really, really hard for a lot of guys coming into this league. Playing in the trenches, a lot of rotation going on with defensive linemen. Offensive line, you got just those guys starting. You don't rotate your offensive linemen. They get tired as well too. And it's hard to stop a man and move him against his will. Takes a lot of getting used to. If you look at Philly, they actually signed the guy from the Jets who people thought was going to be a bust on the offensive line. And he's been one of their best linemen this year. So I think you might be jumping the gun a little bit if we start looking at getting rid of those guys. I think you have to sit tight with what we have. We have a roster that is capable of making the playoffs this year, because they could have made the playoffs last year. If we shore up a few pieces, add an edge guy, add another guy in the interior, add a linebacker. And these guys don't necessarily have to be complete all the way studs. I think that Braylon Trice, a guy that people are forgetting about, we drafted him in the 3rd round last year. I think that he could probably be a stud. So if we can get us a couple of other guys who can be very versatile, because that's the name of the game in football these days, is to play positionless football. on defense because that's what they're doing on offense. You got to have guys who could do multiple things, and you need to have hybrid guys. I think that if we can shore up on defense, get a little bit younger, get a little bit more cap room by maybe getting rid of Grady and Onyemata, who I think are not necessarily living up to their contracts in the same way that Kaleb McGary is, I think we'll be really good. Not advocating for anybody to ever lose their jobs, but just saying, we got to get a little bit more production if we're going to be paying that. That's our show for today. Stay tuned. If you like what we're doing, hit that like and subscribe button. C-Mo to C. Mitchell, Bird Bath, checking out, baby. Point Game Official. Peace.